Shalom, and welcome back to B'nai Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and most importantly, to share this wisdom and inspiration with friends and family. When you look in the big book of Leviticus, chapter 9, it describes what occurred on the, quote, 8th day. The 8th day was the day of inauguration. This is when the tabernacle was going to serve the purpose of containing God's presence and the service of God in real time, for real. And this is when Aharon, the brother of Moses, officially becomes the Cohen, the priest of God. And from him, all his descendants, perpetually until the end of time, are known as Kohanim, as the priests. What does it say in verse 2? Moses says to Aaron, take a young calf for a sin offering. Why would he have to offer a sin offering? Well, we know that Aaron, that is Moses' brother, was the one who constructed the golden calf. Of course, he didn't do it with any intention of worshiping idols, but the fact is that he did play that important role. He was the person who so to speak, constructed that terrible, terrible idol, that terrible sin. And here is the question. The Talmud tells us, and so is Jewish law, that if a Kohen, a priest, a descendant of Aaron, worships idols, even if it's done unintentionally, even if it was done by mistake, that priest is now rendered unfit for serving in the Holy Temple. He cannot do the service of God. That means even if he repents, does what we call teshuvah, returns with his whole heart to God, but he can no longer serve God in that capacity because he had served an idol. And the question is, how is it? How come? How is it possible that Aaron is indeed not just a high priest, but he is not just a priest, but he is the high priest. He is the first priest. He is the symbol of what a priest should be, when he was the one who constructed the golden calf. True, he didn't do it with any intent to worship it. And we all know that he did it. His intent was to stall. His intent was to delay things with a great hope that it won't come to it, that the Jews will not worship the idol, because Moses by that time would have come down from the mountain. But the fact is the fact. The fact remains that he made that idol. He was part of this terrible sin. So how could he become the priest? How could he become the high priest? Of course, we could answer it simply that indeed there was no priesthood at that point. In other words, the clock on priesthood is starting to tick right here, right now. And therefore, that rule that a, quote, a priest who worshiped an idol in any shape or in any way or in any matter, and even if it was done unintentionally, can never ever serve in the Holy Temple again, that only begins, so to speak, after this point. That's a nice argument, but it still doesn't help explain how somebody who was involved in such an egregious, such a grave sin should be able to serve in the temple at all. Or why didn't it apply to him? The answer is, what is the idea? What is the essence of a priest? A priest is a servant of the people. A priest is the one who has his entire life dedicated to representing the people before God, to offering the service on behalf of the people for God. In fact, the priests, like the rest of the tribe, the Levites, did not get a parcel, a portion as an inheritance in the land of Israel. They were totally reliant on the brethren because they're totally to serve their brethren, the rest of the Jewish people. So the definition of a priest is one who serves, one who gives, one who lives a life not for himself, but for others, one who serves not themselves, but entirely others. Aaron was the symbol of that. You see, Aaron, when he suggested that he will be the one to construct the golden calf, he knew very well at the time the rule that I just shared with you before. He understood that with this, he will never, ever be able to have a chance to worship God in that capacity. Moreover, he was certain that he will lose this world and the portion of the world to come. He knew that what he's doing is inexcusable, but he was ready to do it because he figured, I will take the fall for these people. Let me become the one who will be blamed for everything. He was such a dedicated servant of the people. He was so compassionate, especially to those who maybe didn't deserve it, the sinners, which was only a fraction of the Jewish population. But even for them, he was ready to give up everything, his entire legacy, his entire spirituality, his entire connection to Hashem, just to try to save their skin, just to try to protect them, and to serve as a fall guy for them. Now that was the symbol that God looked for. That was the person that God says, that's the person who is the ultimate Cohen, who is the ultimate priest. He will forever be the symbol, the icon for what a priest needs to be. Selfless. Of course, they can't worship an idol and so on, but we understand that in the idea of it, the soul of this, to be selfless and to be totally and absolutely dedicated to another. And in that sense, each and every one of us could be, quote, a priest. Each and every one of us could be a Levite or a Cohen. In fact, Maimonides says that anybody that dedicates themselves, their lives, totally, exclusively to Hashem, to God, to the service of God, and I add, to the service of others, to guide others, to serve others, to be there selflessly for others, that person, at least in a spiritual sense, is indeed considered a Levite, or even more, a Cohen.